Hi, so Blizzard, as they have done for the last couple of expansions, have started to release some, I don't know, graphic mini novels, sort of little comics, explaining the motivations of some of the important characters going into the following expansion. And we're starting off with Jaina. Of course, the story of Jaina here, just to bring people up to speed who may not know the lore going back to, before World of Warcraft, was that she was so desperate to find peace between the Alliance and the Horde that, in a nutshell, she stood aside and allowed the Horde to kill her father in the interest of peace. She was still very much interested in peace between the Alliance and the Horde, even in World of Warcraft through several expansions, until, of course, Garrosh Hellscream dropped the mana bomb on Theramore Isle, at which point she was as anti-Horde as you can be. And that's pretty much where we've been with it. So, as you can imagine, now we're going back to Kul Tiras. Jaina is not exactly everyone's favourite personality, given that everyone blames her, as well they might, for the death of her father, who was the ruler of Kul Tiras, Jaina Proudmoore. So there's this graphic comic. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a little look at it. Someone said, oh, you must look at this. You must look at this. So let's just go through this, and I'm just going to throw in my own comments as and when they come up here. So new comic, World of Warcraft, Battle for Azeroth, #1. So presumably we're going to get this for several others. I'm hoping somewhere in there there'll be something with Thrall with Vol'jin's Ashes, actually, from the Horde side. So Jaina, reunion. So, begins off here, Jaina saying, the skeletons of Theramore remind me of my past deeds and my failures. So remember, at this point, she doesn't just blame Garrosh Hellscream as being a bad egg. She now sees that the Horde is inherently bad. I suppose this is something that can only be reinforced by the war chief they've chosen in Sylvanas, and with what Sylvanas is doing as well. Says, I have been told that my sense of empathy was what made me strong. But in the face of annihilation of my people by Garrosh Hellscream, how naive I was to let fairness and tolerance be my only guides. I think she believes that had she acted unilaterally, certainly, had she acted differently, that the Horde, certainly as it is now, wouldn't even exist. I think she sort of believes that the Horde could have been destroyed, and that actually she was a very powerful voice against the destruction of the Horde in order to trying to find this peace. A little bit egotistical when you think about it, really. But she wouldn't necessarily be wrong, very powerful mage. Even before that, I could have ended the... Well, here we go, sorry, actually, I've jumped ahead. Even before that, I could have ended the Horde in the Undercity with Varian had I been willing. So what this is talking about is something I don't think you can do anymore in Wrath of the Lich King. But after the Wrathgate, basically, from the Alliance's point of view, they were betrayed by the Horde. Now, of course, the Horde were equally betrayed because, it was a faction of the Forsaken that were responsible for chucking the Blight onto both Horde and Alliance aside. But either way, Varian definitely was not very happy with Bolvar, his good friend and the protector of his son while Varian was away as well, had basically been wiped out, and he went to the Undercity to exact revenge. And there was a scenario you undertook as both Alliance and Horde, because Horde weren't happy either. You went with Thrall if you were on the Horde side, to again wrest control of the Undercity back towards the part of the Horde that was actually loyal to the Horde. And they met up at the middle. So Varian and Thrall about to go, "Rrr," and then Jaina went, no, and teleported Varian and the Alliance players away, essentially. So even at that point in World of Warcraft, Jaina was still very much about doing everything she could for peace between the factions. My desire for peace was a weakness. One the enemy was always happy to exploit. And there, there's the scene. Thrall, appearing to comfort her. Thrall, to be fair, did comfort her. He didn't really like the business anymore. From Thrall's point of view, to be fair, he was wanting to live in peace as well. And Jaina Proudmoore was not letting that happen. You know. Ah. Now, there's the end of it there. But in actual fact, I know that there's another part to it. So what I may have to do. So what someone basically did is they sent me a link to a PDF which appears to have the whole thing in there. Not quite sure why it's not there on the website just yet. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm just not looking hard enough for the other bits. So we're just going to have a look through this one there. So Jaina at the end says, I will never be so foolish again. And then, I wonder now what my life, what the world would have been like. Bit of arrogance again there, Jaina, but never mind. If I had fought by my father's side. If I had been... So, you know, where it goes on to, it says, I will never be so foolish again. I wonder now what my life, what the world would have been like. Bit of arrogance there, but, you know, you are a great hero. If I had fought by my father's side. If I had been there for him after Derek was killed by the Horde. Would he have been less driven by rage? If I had returned home to help him after the Third War, would he have listened to my counsel? Could we have worked together to destroy the Horde when the time was right? I have run from these questions for years. I can avoid them no longer. Perhaps, after so long, I should go home. Oh dear. Bloody thing. So now she's going to Borrelus here. This is all, of course, before the Battle for Azeroth. She is going to return during the Battle for Azeroth storyline, but this is all beforehand. It's also technically not spoilers, by the way, because, you know, this is out now. So she appears to be spying on a bit of a meeting. So this is someone saying, in the Second War, he fought to defend the Alliance, his home, his family. Family in bold there, so Jaina's ears pricking there, I'm sure. And after the Third War, when he heard his daughter was in danger, he took our navy. Or he took his navy, sorry, our navy. They raced across the sea to save her and her city from the ravages of the Horde. Various members of the crowd going there. We served milady. We remember. There was no man better. And what was his reward? Sorry about all these shifting about. Another member of the crowd, his own child, who conspired with the very leaders of the Horde. So a different scene we're getting here now. This is how it's appearing, I imagine, in the minds of the commoners or the people of Kulturas. You know, Jaina there looking smug, detached. Thrall looking on gleefully. You know. Then stood aside and allowed them to murder him. A traitor, that one. Death to Jaina. Death to the betrayers. And another says, death's too good for the likes of her. And Jaina thinking their hatred. This appears to be Jaina's mother now. My beloved Daelin was not a perfect man, but he was a great man, one of the best we have known. He knew the cost of fighting the Horde, and he never once hesitated to pay it. He knew that peace with such monsters was impossible. He died to preserve our freedom. He gave his life for Kulturas. Various members of the crowd there presumably chanting Kulturas. Jaina thinking, I only wanted to stop the war, to save lives. Jaina's mother again. Thus we honour our fiercest warrior, who would never let harm come to his people. And Jaina thinking, but I saved the wrong lives. So now someone's come up, a lady. A lady? A word, Lady Proudmoore. What is it, Admiral Copeland? If it please your ladyship, I will tell you on the way back to the castle. Jaina casting a spell on her ear hole to give herself better hearing, presumably. Although, surely, I would have thought that's just going to make you hear like a seagull and it's going to deafen you. Wouldn't it be better to cast a spell that was around them? So, I don't know, weird. I don't know how magic works. The Waycrest family didn't even show up today. Every year, fewer of our so-called nobles come. What do you want? The news is not good. We thought the destruction of the Burning Legion would signal peace. But the Horde and the Alliance are already at odds again. Proudmoore. Hardly shocking, but that shouldn't affect us. Kulturas hasn't been part of the Alliance in years. The Horde is on the warpath. They will not care about our claims of neutrality. And I assure you, we will not be able to avoid them. I suggest we re-establish ties with the Alliance. No. When we asked for their help to avenge Dalin's murder, they spat in our faces. And to beg for aid when we are not even under attack would make me seem weak. I am not weak. Of course not. And to be sure, our navy once again grows formidable. And someone sidling up there saying, you mean? Let's see. Sorry, it's all really awkward the way I have to do this. Ah, help. Oh my God. You mean, to the needs of the future, someone who would want to protect Kulturas as they would their home. Admiral, have your ears been deafened by cannon fire? No, Lady Ashvane. Ah, Ashvane. Okay, so she is a key player in the Battle for Azeroth story. Again, don't want to go into spoilers there. Then how did you not hear what Our Lady just said to our countrymen? I did. And yet your counsel is that we invite the great Archmage Jaina Proudmoore, Saviour of Azeroth, here. That we welcome with open arms the serpent who let Kulturas's finest soldiers be wantonly slain. That is your counsel? And then Proudmoore, enough. In a way, I blame myself for Jaina. She was a special child, brilliant, and she had such a gentle soul. I moved heaven and earth to smooth her path. I had to fight Dalin to allow her to be trained in Dalaran. Jaina at this, oh, mother, I didn't know. I forgot to teach her humility, loyalty to her people. Well, you certainly failed to teach her humility. Several times in this comic, she's already said, you know, how the world would be massively different if she'd have acted differently. It may have been. It may have been. If I thought there were anything remaining of that sweet child. ... The dreaded triple dot. Right, on to the last bit. The last time it does that. Here we go. We will not be reaching out to anyone, Admiral. Kulturas will protect its own. Lady Ashvane looking a bit smug there. And someone saying to the Admiral, Sir, what are we going to do? You heard, Lady Proudmoore. We will fight with the forces we have. Kulturas will stand alone. At which point Jaina goes over. Now, possibly what I should have pointed out earlier, I didn't think it had that much significance. At this sort of anniversary, everyone was thrusting sabres into the ground. Jaina seems to have grasped hold of one. Perhaps it was the one put in by her mother. So she's saying, no, she's drawn it out. You won't. Which I guess is where it's going to lead up to the starting story of Battle for Azeroth, where we, of course, I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say we all go to Kulturas, and of course we're going in tow with Jaina Proudmoore herself. They're not going to be best pleased to see her. What do I think of this comic in terms of what it's saying? We already sort of know that Jaina is very much of the mind that she shouldn't have helped the Horde, or she shouldn't have tried to find peace between the Horde and Alliance. She regrets that. We know that. It doesn't give us that anything different there. Perhaps it potentially introduces us to Lady Ashvane. You know, that smug look, even if you didn't know the story yet, if you haven't really seen anything of the story, you now know that she's a sly one. You're sort of going to get the strong impression that the Admiral is essentially the good guy in this. But what we're really getting is a scene, I think, for people, again, who don't know the storyline, that Jaina is not going to be welcomed with open arms. If people have this idea that in order to join with Kulturas again, get the Kulturans back into the Alliance, that we're going to be using Jaina as a bridge for that, we're just being told here, it's not necessarily the best idea you've had in your life, because she's pretty much the most hated person in the Alliance. You know, they'd rather deal with a Pandaren they don't even know what they are, than Jaina, who is actually one of them. So, but nonetheless, we are going to go there with Jaina herself. Jaina is now determined not only to do right by her people, but she is of a mind with them as well that the Horde are monsters. It's very difficult to argue against it as well, as I say, with the actions of Garrosh and what are going to be very soon the actions of Sylvanas. What I'm curious about is at what point this takes place, because there are certain events that are going to take place before Battle for Azeroth launches. It'll still technically be Battle for Azeroth content, but nonetheless, with the pre-patch, we know we're getting certain events taking place where the Horde is going to be attacking the Alliance, and then the Alliance are going to counter with an attack on a Horde territory. Is this taking place before? Is this what's happening now? I also found it was curious that she described herself as fighting the Legion on her own. It may not have come out very well there, because I've had to do this weird thing because XSplit isn't handling this PDF very well, and on the Blizzard website I can only find the first bit. But she describes how she, abandoned the Kirin Tor at the start of Legion, which of course we know. We were introduced to that storyline in the game itself. She told them to piss off, basically, because the Kirin Tor, were allowing Horde back into Dalaran. But she says she went off and fought the demons on her own. Because I was wondering what she's been up to. Surely she's not abandoned Azeroth. And she hasn't. But at the same time, there's no detail on exactly what she did. Simply saying she fought the demons alone. Didn't notice her on the Broken Shore. Didn't really see her nosing around in the Tomb of Sargeras. I certainly didn't see her popping up in Argus. So what was she doing? Where was she going to fight? Was she just doing world quests all the time? Is that what she was doing? I don't know about that. Unfortunately, we may not actually find too much out until maybe the novel. The novel's actually quite soon now, Before the Storm. Got Man and Advance Order. That's coming out in like 3 weeks, something like that. So we haven't got too much to wait for that. I know there's some people were saying there was a load of stuff leaked from that as well. I'm not paying any attention to that. I'm just going to wait till I get the book and read it. Maybe it'll explain some more about that, because I'm really curious as to what good she's actually done with fighting the Legion, given that we were there at every important junction and she was not. But anyway, that's the first comic. Just like with previous expansions, I'm sure there'll be other ones with other luminaries of the Battle for Azeroth storyline as well, and I'm really curious to find out about the Thrall carrying around an urn of Vol'jin's ashes. I haven't really seen any of that in the alpha yet, so that's not necessarily a storyline that's going to get much traction early on, but it's supposed to be in there. I'm super curious to find out Vol'jin's story, the untold story of him. If I'm curious about any Horde storyline, that's the one for me. But anyway, there you go. I'll put a link in the description below, of course, if you want to check it out yourself. Let me know what you think as well in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share for further content. And until next time, I'll see you later.